I want to talk about Genesis 3:16, and I want to analyze this text. And the reason why I would like to analyze this text is because this text in Genesis 3:16 is used among some believers and among some men, maybe even some women, to prove that women are not allowed to teach. And the basis of this belief is that man was meant to dominate and rule over the woman. We're going to look at this text, and I really want to analyze what is being said here. And I think that the key issue that we have to decide is whether this is a command or a curse from Elohim. Now, I am all for women teaching, but if the word of Elohim said that a woman cannot teach, that's fine. I would go by that. But I sincerely do not believe that the word of Elohim is indeed saying that. I think it's saying quite the opposite. So what I'm going to do is read over this text, and I'm going to analyze what's really happening here. Now, we all know the story of Adam and Eve. The story of Adam and Eve ends in sin. And as a result, there were curses in this earth. And because of that, we are all living in a sinful world because of what Adam and Eve have done. So let's get into the key text and let's see, is it Elohim's will that the husband or the man will rule over the woman? And let's get into the key text right now, and let's read Genesis 3:16. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe. And it says, unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In sorrow you shall bring forth children, and your desire shall be to your man, and he shall rule over you. And that is found in Genesis 3:16. Now, the part that I want to pay attention to is the very one that says he shall rule over you. Now is the time where I want to analyze in this text, is this a curse or is this a command of Elohim that the man should rule over the woman? Now, the first thing that we want to note is that when Adam and Eve ate of the fruit of the tree, we know that from that point on, sin had now entered into the world. And as a consequence of this, there were curses that the Bible speaks of that were given down to the serpent, to Adam, to Eve. So let's first analyze what the curse was on the serpent. Now, in Genesis chapter 3, verses 14 and 15, the Bible records the curses that would go to the serpent. And I picked out at least 3 from the text, and they are as follows. Okay, now in Genesis chapter 3, verses 14 and 15, it said to the serpent, 1, the serpent shall go upon its belly. 2, it shall eat dust all of its days. And 3, there would be enmity or hatred. Enmity is hatred against the woman. So those are the 3 things that the curse was put on the serpent. So it looks like it says the serpent shall go upon its belly. So I must conclude that if the curse was to go upon its belly, the serpent must have had another means of getting around besides being on its belly. So maybe it had wings, maybe it could fly, but it said now that sin has occurred, you now must go upon your belly. And then it also said it shall eat dust all of its days, and there will be hatred or enmity against the woman. So that was the consequences of sin that was listed for the serpent in Genesis 3:14 and 15. Now let's move on to the curses of Adam. Now I believe it lists Eve next, but I'm saving Eve for the last. And now we're going to look at Genesis chapter 3, verses 17 through 19. And this is these are the curses that were given to Adam as a result of him sinning against Elohim. I read at least 4 curses that belonged to Adam, and that consisted of 1, because of sin, the ground was cursed. And it says, cursed is the ground, And because of that, there will be thorns and thistles. Thorns and thistles shall come forth. The second curse to Adam, it says, you shall eat the herb of the field. The third is with sweat shall he eat bread. And also the fourth one, it says, Adam shall return to the dust from which he was taken. And we all know that when you return to the dust, that means that you are going to die. So these are all curses. As a result, you're going to die. Now, let's move on to the reason why I'm doing this video. He shall rule over you. Let's move to the curses that are given to Eve as a result of her sin. Now, the key text that needs to be analyzed concerning Eve is Genesis 3:16. Now, when we look at Genesis 3:16, I see at least 4 things as well that were given down as a curse to Eve. It said, 1, sorrow will greatly multiply during pregnancy or conception. 2, in sorrow shall she bring forth children. And 3, she will have a longing or a desire for her husband. And then 4th one, her husband shall rule over her. Now, if you look at these curses, these are not necessarily what I would consider commands coming from Elohim. These appear to me to be consequences and results of sin. These are not ideal. This was not his way for us to live. We were not supposed to sweat, and we were not supposed to, women were not supposed to bear children in great pain. Now, this is interesting. When we read, it says that in Genesis 3:16, it says, sorrow will greatly multiply during pregnancy or conception, which leads me to believe it said it will greatly multiply. So it kind of makes me think that even if it were a perfect world, there still might have been some pain in childbirth, but it wouldn't have been so great, because it says it will greatly multiply. So if you multiply something, it seems like it must already be there, but you multiply it, it's even bigger. So it looks like in a perfect world, it still would have been some type of pain during childbirth, but it would not have been great. Okay. And it says in sorrow, shall she bring forth children. And it seems like it would not have been that way. Okay. So let's look at this. These are curses. You cannot look at this and not say that these are curses. These are absolutely curses. These are not commands by Elohim. These are the result of sin. Now, if you notice that the Sefer or the Bible consistently says in Genesis chapter 3, he shall, you shall, he shall, and I will. So if we say that Elohim commands in this current world that the husband shall rule over the wife as his plan, we must apply that to the other curses listed as well. I repeat that again. So if we say that Elohim commands in this current world that the husband shall rule over the woman as his plan, we must apply that to the other curses that are listed as well. So if we're going to go with that logic, yes, that the man shall rule over the woman, the husband rules over the wife. Let's go with that logic. Even though I don't believe it, let's go with that logic. If the man is to rule over the woman, then that means that we must apply it to all of the curses that are listed. Okay? So it means that it must be Elohim's law and desire for women to have sorrow and childbearing. That is his desire. His desire is for women to have sorrow and childbearing. That's his law. That's his desire. Okay? And it's also his Elohim's or Yahuwah's desire for men to rule over their wives. It must be Elohim's law and desire for women to have sorrow and childbearing. It must be Elohim's law and desire for men to rule over their wives. And it must be Elohim's law and desire for men to eat in sorrow. It's his law and desire for thorns and thistles to exist. It is his law and desire for man to die and return to dust. That's what he wants. He wants us to die. Does this really make sense? Does this really make sense? Because in my mind, this doesn't make sense. Elohim does not want us to die. Elohim does not want us in sorrow. But this is what we're saying. We're saying that this is what he wants. He wants the man to rule as a law over the woman, and you can't isolate this one curse from the other ones. It is saying as a result of sin. As a result of sin, the man will want to rule over you. It's not saying that he is commanding that the man rule over the woman. It's saying as a result of sin, this is what a man is going to do. He's going to want to rule over you. It's not saying that he's commanding it, but he is saying this is a consequence of sin, that the man, he will want to rule over the woman. And clearly we can see that for the fact that men don't want women involved in the gospel. They're constantly teaching, some groups, not all, some groups are teaching that the woman cannot preach, the woman cannot have authority, the woman has to stay at home, tend to domestic affairs. But this is not what the word is saying. So let's move on. We must look at these things. These are not Elohim's laws. These are curses as a result of sin. Now, we also have to look at another scripture. And I'm going to be as bold enough to say that Elohim never told man or woman to rule over each other. That never came from Elohim. He never told Adam and Eve to rule over each other. So when we look at Genesis chapter 129, when we look at Genesis chapter 1, verse 29, we can clearly see what his plan was from the beginning concerning man and wife. Now in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, did I say 29? I meant Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. It says, and Elohim blessed them. Now keep in mind, them is plural. And Elohim blessed them. And Elohim said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. Genesis 1:28. Now, if you notice, it says, and Elohim blessed them. That's plural. So that means both Adam and Eve, he said, bless them. And Elohim said unto them, both of them, both Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. Did he tell Adam to rule over her? No. Did he tell Eve to rule over him? No. He said for them to both. He said man and woman, them. He said have dominion over the fish. Adam and Eve have dominion over the sea, the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. He is giving both of them command not to rule over each other. He's saying have dominion over the fish, over the sea, over the fowl of the air, over every living thing that moves on the earth. He is saying to Adam and Eve, both of you dominate over the other creation, not each other. That was his plan. So if you're saying that his plan, Elohim's plan, is for us, for men to rule over women, you're saying that he's endorsing sin. If it was so apparent that he wanted women to be ruled over by their husbands, why did he only initiate this response after they sin? He said before sin for them both to rule over the earth. And then all of a sudden when sin comes, it's his desire for the man to rule over the woman. I'm not buying that. Now, when we look at the Decalogue, which is the 10 Commandments, I want to examine the language. Now, if you get some time, just skim the 10 Commandments, which are found in Exodus 20, and see what the language sounds like to you and compare it to Genesis chapter 3. Because the language is very different when you read in the book of Exodus. In the book of Exodus 20, when he's giving the Decalogue, he is saying a lot, you shall not, you shall not, you shall not. But it's interesting, in Genesis chapter 3, he doesn't use that language when he's telling you what the curses are. He says, he shall rule over you. But the general language, most of the time when he's giving a command, is saying, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not have any other gods. But all of a sudden he gets to Genesis 3:16 and he says, he shall. These were not commands. Notice the difference in the language. Notice the difference. I think there was like one part where it did say in the Exodus chapter 20, somewhere in the commandments, it did say something to the effect, you shall, but most of the commands that were given in Exodus 20 said, you shall not. And that type of language is not used in Genesis 3. Now, what I gather from this, the text is saying that because of sin in the future, man's heart would change. When he created both male and female, they were equal. But because of sin entering into the world, it's that men would want to dominate over them. Not that he wanted it to, but he's telling you in the future, this is what they're going to do. He's not commanding it, just like he didn't really command that anybody die. He is saying that these are consequences. As a consequence of sin, man is going to rule over the woman. He did not command it. He's telling you what will happen. It's just like if I tell you that if you put your hand on a hot stove, you will be burned. I'm not saying that it's a command. I'm saying that's a consequence of you putting your hand on a hot stove. You will get burned. That is not a command. It's a consequence. And people want to just isolate the part where it says he shall rule over you and pair that with 1 Timothy 2:12 and say, oh, that means that a woman can't teach. She can't have authority, because if she teaches and she has authority, then that means that she's over the man. And that's a violation of Torah. No, it's not. That's a lie that you're given of Torah. It's a lie. Women have the authority to teach men, women, children, whoever they want to teach, as long as they're not conflicting with the word of Elohim. And also, I want to conclude with the text in Genesis 2:18. Now, when Genesis 2:18, I think this clarifies a lot of the nonsense that are coming from these people, because these are very weak arguments. I'm serious. These are very weak arguments. And I don't hear enough women speaking out against it. So this is why I am doing this particular topic. And I have a lot more to say about this issue. But let's read Genesis 2:18 and let's see how this relates to the discussion of can women have authority. And Genesis 2:18 says, and Yahuwah Elohim said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him. So Elohim said, I will make him a helpmeet. So I don't believe at all that Eve was weak. I believe that Eve probably carried the same, if not maybe slightly less. She probably had the same amount of strength that Adam had. Probably more than any strength that any modern day man right now, even at the strongest level, has. I believe Eve probably had every muscle in her body developed. And I believe that she had every bit of strength and she was helping him out in the field. Because a lot of people say, well, the woman belongs in the house, because the command for Adam is for him to be out in the field. No, I think she was out there in the field helping him. Why would Elohim produce an inferior creature as a helpmeet? She had to be able to carry just as much of the load as Adam did if she's going to be a helper. How is she going to be a helper if she's weaker than he is? So I think she had equal strength to Adam. Or if she was not equal, it was slightly less. And a lot of times we have bodybuilders who build up their muscle and we say, oh, these women who are bodybuilders look like men. No, they look like themselves. And I believe that our idea of beauty has been altered, because I believe that the original woman had fully developed muscles and they were strong. And I think one of the reasons why over the years women probably got weaker and weaker is because when we started probably using less of our muscles, every time we move, what do? We always ask the men to move things. We don't try to, lift weights or anything like that. And I think biologically they probably just became stronger. But the first woman in the Garden of Eden, I believe she was assisting in doing a lot of the hard labor that Adam was doing. I don't think she was just sitting in the house bearing children. And, that's it. I believe she was out there. She was helping Adam. So when we look at the fact that Elohim created Adam and Eve, he created her as a helper to him. So she was helping him. And never at any time did Elohim say during creation or even after creation that the woman had to be ruled over by her husband. These are simply consequences of sin. The man does not rule over the woman. The woman does not rule over the man. But the issue is that men and women have different roles. That's the only difference. The men can teach, the women can teach. We just have different and distinct roles. Our roles are different, but we are still capable of helping each other without ruling over each other. The man produces the seed and the woman carries the seed. That's the difference. We're not to rule over each other. The man is not greater than the woman, and the woman is not greater than the man. We are both the same. We just have different functions. The man, like I said, produces the seed and the woman carries it. But those are our distinct differences, but we are all equal. We are not less than or greater than. We are all equal. And both the man and the woman, we both need each other in order to be fruitful and multiply. We need each other. You have a role as a man and I have the role as a woman. The man produces the seed and the woman carries the seed and produces the fruit. So with that being said, I'm going to end this video because that's all I got to say. I ain't got no more to say. So if anybody's out there listening, let me know what you think. And I have more that I want to say on this subject, but I had to deal with the verse Genesis 3:16 that talks about he shall rule over you. So from what I'm getting, these were curses, and we are not to rule over each other. We are to work together. Shalom.